Hello everyone, and welcome to this video podcast from the Light Review. My name's John Bullock, and today I'm speaking to Richard Hall, one of the co-founders of Spektd. Spektd, as I'm sure you're aware, is a fantastic new platform for specifiers, and it was launched at the beginning of this year. Having said that, Richard and I have been talking about Spektd ever since the last Frankfurt Light Building in 2018. So it's been quite a time in the gestation, and it's great that it's finally out there. What we want to do today is to find out from Richard just what the journey's been like and where we're going to from here.
Hello, John.
Hello, yes, how are we?
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much.
It is 2 years, isn't it? It is 2 years since we first spoke about it.
It is 2 years since we were thinking very much about starting this project in anger, as it were. And where have those 2 years gone? It's been a particularly enjoyable journey. A lot of learnings along the way. But as you say, we are now live. We launched earlier this year. And it's a very exciting time for us as we build our momentum for both manufacturers of quality lighting equipment and for specifiers of quality lighting equipment as well.
Tell us where the idea came from originally.
Well, there are at least 5 people who claim to have had the original idea, but I can't, and I have to say that one of those is not myself. The idea has been around for at least for 10 years now. When I was working as a marketing director for a manufacturer, I know that there were people that were trying to get something like this off the ground, and for very good reason. I think the reason being, the key reason being that, well, I think it's worth saying that the idea that was originally out there was, is there a way to automate the specification process for lighting designers? Because we all know that lighting designers do not want to spend all of their time doing administrative tasks. They want to create, they want to come up with conceptual ideas, and they want to add value. And that's how they add value. They don't do it by putting together schedules and et cetera, et cetera. And of course, it was quite clear to me as to why something like this would be required. I think that if you look at how the lighting industry has been interacting, it could be argued that we're still working in exactly the same way as we were a quarter of a century ago. So it was to find a way to find productivity savings on both sides. I think the only thing that was left for the industry was, well, you know, who's going to do this? How are they going to do it? And when are they going to do it? And around about 2 years ago, I'd been looking at the idea of getting something off the ground. But of course, to do something like this, it's a big commitment which has to be from a team of people, and getting the right team together at the right time, the people that can put aside the time to develop the product, to develop the software, etc., etc. It took a little bit of time for things to come together.
I was interested, just sort of watching it from the sidelines, if you like, that we have this classic two sides to this lighting story, that we've got the makers without whom none of us can survive, and we've got the specifiers without whom, to an extent, the makers can't survive. And when we look at Spektd, which is trying to sit right in the middle between those two, servicing both sides, to see where it was going to go, whether it was going to be the design-led operation or it was going to be the manufacturer-led operation, because those two things are very different, I think. The way that a designer thinks, the way a manufacturer thinks, although they come together, the synergy is in the coming together.
Yes.
But from where you were originally sitting, how did that look?
Well, it's an excellent point, and yes, you're right. There is a mutual symbiotic relationship between the two sides. Coming from the manufacturer side, it was very clear to me that, you know, this ecosystem would only work if there were advantages as well from the manufacturer side. So what we have with the team aspect is a really interesting spread. whereby we have Ida Hoy, who is a lighting designer who really brings insight from what lighting designers require. And of course, from my side of working on sales, product management and marketing on the manufacturer's side, we've managed to develop a system where we believe that there are equally advantageous reasons for a manufacturer to participate in the ecosystem as there are for lighting designers. So whereas the original idea was to have a productivity tool for specifiers of quality lighting equipment, what we realized was going to be equally important was to somehow develop within the same system what is essentially a hybrid selling, marketing, and market research tool for manufacturers. So added value on both sides. And that was the trick. And to be honest, that's really where a lot of the time of the last 2 years has been taken. If it was simply a case of having a tool whereby people can choose lighting equipment, compare it, add it to essentially a specification basket and press a button to produce a specification, I think we would have been at market an awful long time ago. But I'm not sure that many manufacturers would have been too impressed with what they were getting out of their participation within the scheme.
Which is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because one of the, should we say, one of the pressures that exists between designer and manufacturer is the sense that the manufacturers are not necessarily interested in the project, but they're very interested in the sale. That what they care about more is making sure that they're getting their numbers, whereas the designers, their heart and their soul is inside the project. We know all of that sort of stuff. And as you say, because this kind of a facility becomes a source of data harvesting, that information can be gained. Was there any resistance from the design side when you put that in front of them and say, we've got this great idea, and this is how it's going to work, and all your stuff will be in a cloud-based data field?
Yeah, I wouldn't say resistance. I think that any lighting design practice would be concerned that they want to know where is their data being stored. I'd like to just rewind a little bit and talk about, you've touched on sort of commercial realities.
Okay.
And I think this is a very important point because, yeah, certainly, look, nobody becomes a lighting designer from just the commercial perspective. You know, designers want to create, they want to improve quality of life for people. I'm not saying manufacturers don't either, but you're probably right on the balance of things. The commercial arguments outweigh the project interest from the manufacturer's side. But we have to remember that, of course, that every lighting design practice is a commercial organization. It needs to make money, it needs to make profit. And I think it's also worth bearing in mind that, you know, I like to think I'm a little bit of a scholar of businesses as well. And, you know, when I look at the business of lighting design practice, in fact, any of the creative industries, they're quite a precarious industry. You know, it's feast or famine. It's related to the construction industry. And we know that this is a very tough industry where there's a lot of people out there where it is purely only about profit. The biggest cost by far for a lighting design practice, specifiers of lighting equipment, is of course people, and if that's the right way that it should be. Yeah, it's difficult. Sometimes you don't know where the next projects are coming from, and you know, if you have a glut of work, you have to increase your fixed cost base. And sometimes if you don't, if that runs out, you're still left with a very high fixed cost base. So I think one of the motivators from lighting designers who were initially wanting a product such as Spekt was to be able to flatten that curve a little bit. You know, we can't help people with the creative side of lighting design. What we can help with is the administrative stuff. So it's how do you find the optimal piece of lighting equipment? How do you create a project very quickly? How do you create all of the specification document at the press of a button? We can help with that. And it was very interesting that when lighting designers were almost asking me whether I would, look at the feasibility of a product like Spekt, I was amazed that when they said, well, look, if it's done right, the productivity savings that we would get are somewhere between 15 and 20% of our time. And I was absolutely blown away by this. It's 1 day in every 5. So that's really significant saving that lighting designers can make. You're releasing people to spend more time on adding value on projects. You're releasing time for them so that they're not working late into the night and becoming demotivated. You're releasing their time so that they can spend that time to improve themselves, self-improve, which then feeds back into the quality of the designs of the lighting design practice. Now, when we're talking with lighting designers as well, this becomes very clear. It becomes clear to them absolutely immediately. Now, of course, then it's a case of, right, does it work exactly as we wanted to do? And our message back to the lighting designers is work with us. So certainly, when you produce any product from a standing start, you'll never be able to please 100% of the people all the time with 100% of the functionality. But we've done a good. The feedback that we've got is that we're able to take out 80 to 90% of the grunt work of a lighting designer. The second thing is it secure to use our product? And of course, people ask questions. How is data stored? What's your privacy policy? How secure is the data? How can you ensure that none of our competitors can see what we're working on, etc., etc. So these are things that we, as a professional organisation, need to ensure that we are paying a lot of attention to as well.
Right. Okay. Which is a fantastic story from the designer's point of view. At the same time that we started talking about spectacles, we were also talking about the light review. And I am conscious that when I started having conversations with manufacturers about the light review, and I was telling them how great it was going to be and how fantastic, and they just really wanted to be part of it, the thing that really came back was, and what's in it for us?
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably the other side of the Spekt conversation, isn't it? That when there's all the benefits to the designers.
Yeah.
The manufacturers only get a benefit if they are on Spekt.
Yes.
But as far as they're concerned, what else is there? What do they have to do? Because I'm guessing an awful lot of them have had to go out and they've had to look at their own data management, their presentation. They've had to make it compatible with what you're doing. Yeah. So they're investing their time and effort. So the response from them, is it just that now they get a chance of winning a job where they may not have won one, or is there something else that they realize that they can gain from this? Is there marketing as well as sales, I suppose, in them getting involved?
It's very interesting that every time you speak to a different manufacturer about it, they see it from a slightly different angle in terms of where the benefits or the weighting of the benefits actually lie. You're right. I mentioned at the top of the conversation that it was very important that manufacturers get a benefit out of this, and I've described this as from the manufacturer side as a sort of hybrid selling, marketing, and market research tool. We've also mentioned the symbiotic relationship between designers and manufacturers. So if we're doing a bit of a checklist of what the benefits are for manufacturers, if I may, the first thing is, I was always taught, make your customer's life as easy as possible, and they'll look after you. So first thing that you do that, if you're enabling your customer to save 15 to 20% of the time, I'll let somebody else decide whether that's a good thing to be doing or not. Second thing is, you are present at the point of specification. So we'll have a look at the system, I think, in a little while, but at the exact, the way it works is that the designer will be searching based on various criteria. We've all seen comparison websites where we look at whether it's car insurance or mortgages or whatever it might be, and we put in a set of criteria that we want. This is essentially how Spekt works as well. So if your data is in the system and people are searching for what you make, your product will appear on the screen of your customer at the exact moment that they're looking for the exact product that you make. So I rather like to think that this is it puts you in a kind of good position, and all your customer needs to do is go, oh, that looks interesting, press on it, and then you can see, you know, what the product does and how it compares to for what they require from the project. So that's the second point. Thirdly, and this is a really key thing for us. We offer analytics packages to manufacturers. Now, this is not a case of saying lighting designer X is currently looking at your product Y for project in central London, etc., etc. We aggregate a lot of this data. But there's essentially two analytics packages. One is where you get information back on how people are looking at your products, how often they're looking at your products, whether they add you to a comparison basket, whether you get added into a specification, how many, which products, how often, what frequency, literally down to the variant, etc. So you can start to see, you know, okay, is there a return on investment to being part of this system, and how are people viewing our products? On the second side, and this is something which most CEOs of lighting manufacturers are very keen on, is we offer aggregated market information, not just on what people have specified, but on what designers are looking for. So, and the idea of that is people will only specify what is available, but people will try to look for things that they would actually like. So take for example, I remember when I was working manufacturer side, my CEO said to me, can you tell me exactly when all of our product portfolios should require 2,700 Kelvin? Now, okay, in architectural lighting, 2,700 Kelvin now is something which is fairly standard. But you can imagine, you know, you're then presented with this question, well, do people want to go in that direction or don't they? It could be, could you tell me, well, we've got this product in aluminium. Should we do it in copper as well? Well, everything is generally a little bit of guesswork or talking to people. How do you even quantify what trends are happening in terms of what specifies of lighting equipment what? With our analytics package, you can track over periods of time, say, okay, during the period January to March, for example, 2020, 15% of downlight searches included 2,700 Kelvin. By the way, 17% of searchers wanted lower than 2,700 Kelvin, for example. And then you can see how those data points are shifting over time. So as a manufacturer of lighting equipment, you can say, well, okay, we need to keep innovating for our customers. What do they actually want? And you can actually see it's there, it's written in black and white, how the trends are going. Because often what happens at the moment, sometimes we react to what one customer wants. Yeah, or perhaps what one customer is particularly wanting for one project. And then this gets confused as being a trend. And I know this, I've been there, I've seen how manufacturers want. The trend is generally what the competition has already got on the market.
Yep,
but by the way, by the time you brought it to market, the market will have moved on again. So this is really an opportunity for the enlightened manufacturers to really keep their finger on the pulse of, okay, what are people looking for? Even if they're kind of crazy ideas, if there's a pattern of a number of people having the same crazy ideas, you can see that this then becomes a trend that you should therefore be looking to develop product around. And I think this is really a game changer as well, because there's no data that exists like this, whether you look at whether they're commercial organizations that provide market research or industry bodies as well. Nobody's able to drill down to that level of understanding. People can say things like, well, yes, we think sensors and light fittings are going to grow at a rate of X% over a period of 10 years. Fine, but what is it that people are really looking for within that? Because that's what people pay the money for.
I think it's my mind has just gone left and right, because one side is going, this is great, because what we're encouraging designers to do is not to compromise at the point of product research, to say, well, what I really want is one of these, but what I'm going to get is one of those.
Yeah.
But to actually say, no, I want one of these.
Yeah.
And that is hugely positive and very, very encouraging. And the other side has just gone, is this a Pandora's box? What madness are you unleashing on the world here when you ask a lighting designer, just tell us what you actually want? And you go, oh, finally, the fitting with a sky hook, please. And can I have it in 2,722 degrees Kelvin? And yeah, I know we can have it in copper, but can I have it in zirconium? Because I've seen that and it looks really, really nice. And clearly, the truth is going to sit somewhere between those two.
Yeah, of course. What I can't promise to do is to legislate for how manufacturers would interpret the data that they receive, and I would like to think that people would take an enlightened approach to how to interpret that data. All we can do, though, is to, and I'm also very mindful of the wonderful saying by the great Tom Waits: don't confuse information for knowledge. So it is, a lot of it is down to interpretation. But my view is, from working with manufacturers, large and small, over don't like to say for more than a quarter of a century.
You're there, Richard.
It is that there has always been a real knowledge, a real lack of really good insight. Now, yes, you can talk to customers, and there are some fantastic relationships between designers and manufacturers, where the designer says, I've got an idea, I want this, I want X, Y, Z. Can you make it for me? And it's usually project related, and then that might become a standard product. And certain manufacturers which are extremely good at doing that, and we never want to get rid of that. By the way, I should also say that we never want Spect to completely replace or the relationships between manufacturers, brands, their people, and the lighting design practices. I think that's a really important thing to say. Without getting too sidetracked, they say that there's two kinds of technology company. One are disruptors and the other are enablers. We are in the enablement camp. We want to help so that those relationships, the time that people spend together face to face, or perhaps increasingly over Skype, they are spent having value-add conversations rather than poking around in data conversations.
Give us a clue as to how this is going to work, because I know that you've got it set up at your end of the line. Show us how do I specify my zirconium fitting with my 2,749 Kelvin, and show me a sheet that explains how it works. Is that what you're going to do?
If you'd like me to give you a very quick demo,
I think it might. I think it might help everybody.
Absolutely, I'd be delighted to do it. I will do the speed dating version of it. To avoid boring people, but I think you need to
just a quick snapshot of it.
So can I take the screen? Okay, so I log into Spect as a designer, and the first thing that I have on my screen is my dashboard. I can look immediately at the most recent projects I've been looking on, or I can go directly into doing a product search. I can look into a more detailed list of my projects. Here are my current projects. I could look at archive projects because there is obviously a need to archive projects, otherwise this list, as I'm sure you can imagine, would just go on and on and on. Let's look at a project that we set up. So some of this will look quite familiar. We have our type A1, I have an image of the product. I can look through it, I can look at my line drawings. This is great. I've got an overview of what the product is and what it does, etc. That's great. I've got my C1, C2s, yeah, going through. Fantastic. I've got my project here. Now I want to add a product. So I add a luminaire reference, and let's say this is F2. I don't have to say where it goes, so yeah, okay, we don't need to put anything in here, but we could say side passage. And then again, I could also say what the application is. I save that, and here we go. It says Luminaire list updated successfully. Here we see it, type F2, and I've got a placeholder here. Now, I can do a couple of things here. I can either search for a product. So here I'm going to do it. And this takes just a little bit of time as we load the products which are in the system. I would also like to have the caveat and get out clause that since we're doing this over Zoom as well, there is some heavy loading on the old broadband at the moment. But here we go.
Anyone using it, Richard? I think everyone in the world is now using Zoom, so we'd like to thank
yeah,
the people
absolutely.
for keeping it going.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we go. We can look. We can then search for products. Now, downlight's obviously a very popular product. And then there are various criteria that I can sort by. Light source, obviously, I think LED would be the default situation. You can also search by light source manufacturer if you so wish. The CRI rating, you can see here, let's say here we want anything which is above 90, 90 to 100. We can also sort by R9 value within a range. We can sort by macadam step. CCT options, is it fixed white? Yes, we want a fixed white, for example. And in this instance, we want something which is 27,000 Kelvin. And for the sake of argument, let's say we want anything between 27,000 and 3,000 Kelvin. And you see what's happening all of the time is that the number of products on the right-hand side are coming down and down and down. I can also then look for various physical elements, whether it's the finish, whether it's the housing material, whether it's tiltable, rotatable, its shape and dimensions. Critically, I can search for what is the maximum height. So many times as a specifier of equipment, we spend time, we think we've found the ultimate product, only to find that it's 5 millimeters too tall. We can also search for various criteria like what sort of control system does it need to work with. DALI, whether it's wired, and including some of the more recent wireless products as well. So imagine I've gone through a process of searching for optimal light fittings, and I see here, okay, within this product portfolio from Vela in the Nero Mini Protect, there are 112 options. So let's just have a look at those. We click on that, and we see that they are then all listed out. Now, each page is always the same. So you have a photograph of the product, thumbnail of the product, could be a number of them, and dimensional sketches. You can see here as well, quick thumbnails, just to check that the light output is as requested. This is a particularly good example that's been put in by our friends from Vela here. There's a description of the product, etc., etc. And then from this as well, we can drill down and say, okay, we want something. I know we were searching for either 2,700 or 3,000. I'm going to go for the 2,700 versions only, which then has now kicked out all of my 3,000 versions. My delivered lumens, I do want it to be 1/1000. So I'm going to look here by the delivered lumens. Great, here we are. Yes, I want wired DALI. Let's just have a look. I'm going to add that. I can either do two things. I can add it to my compare basket. And I've added that one here. Or I could add it directly to a project, but I'll come back to that in just a second. But also let's say in this range, there were 224 options, and I said I wanted a 2,700. And I said I wanted something like 1,100 lumens. Here we go. Let's add that to the compare basket as well, just to see how they compare like for like. I happen to have compared two products from the same manufacturer, but equally I could have done it from a couple of different manufacturers. So as the designer, I then see line by line all of the product attributes listed in exactly the same order, all the way down. And you'll see that there is very, very little difference in these products, but it's very difficult to find where those differences are. For those of you that were quite eagle-eyed, you'll see that this product here has a depth of 100 mil and this one is 90 mil. Now we knew that 100 mil was the real cutoff point, so I'm going to be safer with this. I know that I've got the lumen output that I require. I know that I have the optics that I require. Yes, it integrates in every other way. This is the product I'm going to add to my project. I was working on this project here. It was that product there that I wanted. Confirm, F2, confirm it once more. It's adding the product to the project. If I go back in, there it is, it's added down the bottom. So it's as simple as that. What I can then do is something which lighting designers like very much. You see how all of the information is laid out in an identical way. There are a number of different ways you can look at that information. And if, for example, we look at all of the light attributes, this keeps the same products in the same order, as you can see, A1, C1, C2, etc. And we can look down and go, right, this whole project is 2,700 Kelvin. Ah, there's one here, it's 3,000 Kelvin. So it makes it very, very quick and easy for mistakes to be found. And in that instance, we can say, okay, let's go back into the same family. Yeah. And let's see if we can find 2,700 version. There's not a 2,700 version within this family. So we say, okay, we then have a choice here. We're going to stick with the 3,000 Kelvin product, or we go back and we start the project search once again in a very quick way. I think then the next thing to say is, in the Spektd dating version of this, is once I am happy with my project, the question is, how do we automate the production of the specification schedules? Here we have, we click on schedules, we have the schedule title, what the project name is. We're going to say this is for information, it's V1, let's say this is V2, sorry, here we go, V2, let's save it, it appears here. And then to be able to produce my specification documentation, I have two buttons over here. One is Excel, and the other one is Word. Just takes a few seconds. It always seems like a long time when you're demoing this live.
Of course it does.
But here we have it. Yeah. That was, I promise you, only a few seconds to produce what is here, our overview schedule of luminaires. And perhaps more importantly, the classic one pager per product, which is then produced in Word format. Which gives us the overview sheet, which is, first of all, is in Word format, so notes can be added in, things can be moved around. And each lighting design practice has their own logo inserted where we're currently saying Spekt. So it's completely personalized around what lighting designers require. That was the very, very quick version.
Yeah, yes, and very impressive too. Can you just quickly explain when we've been talking about the sort of, if you like, the aggregation and the data collection in the search process?
Yes.
As a designer, I fill in all the boxes I want. I come up with the most weird beast that anyone can imagine that no one makes, and then I'm going to hit a button. Is that the search button? And then that goes into that.
Yes.
that goes into the in tray of daft fittings that no one makes, but you might be interested in.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and we so there is that button which is these are the criteria that we want to find. Search.
So the point I'm getting there is that it's the honouring in the in the imagination, if you will, of the designer. The designer says, "Wouldn't it be great if someone did this?" And
Yes.
rather than just going, "Sorry, there aren't any. Move on."
Yeah.
You've actually said, "No, there aren't any, but we've logged it."
So to answer that question about collecting data, yes, there is a big job of work behind that. So within the architecture of the software, it was always designed so that it could, at every point, it can pick up on what is being searched for at each point. But yes, we are collecting that. It's a fundamental reason for why Spektd exists in the first place.
Sure.
I think as well, it's going to be interesting going through a journey with manufacturers over this next sort of 6 to 12 months, as we're really picking up on what data is really useful for them.
When we have been speaking about this issue about manufacturers and who they are for a long time. You are looking at lighting design specification, which tends to have its own character. I've always lived in more of the commercial world, if you will.
Yeah.
And I wonder, are you getting the response that you were expecting to get, or is it wider than you were expecting? Is it narrower than you were expecting?
No, it's wider. It is interesting as well. I mean, when you start a business, as you know, you have to take a bunch of decisions based on what you're not going to do as much as what you are going to do. And our view was, look, we want to make a start with this. We are going to focus on the requirements of lighting designers. So we initially said just lighting designers essentially within central London and the manufacturer brands which appeal to them. Now it's becoming clear that, and the way that we've set up the system so far is based on their requirements, so the input that has come from them. But it's clear now that the word is spreading, that we are seeing that people want to, so wider specifiers of lighting want to use the system like this. However, however you want to define it, where we focus is on having an ecosystem for the quality end of the market.
Right. Okay. For which I honour you and applaud you, because we know very well that there's too much out there that we would really rather not see going into any projects at all. So anything that we can do to just promote that idea of good lighting comes from good product, comes from good specification, is to be welcomed, really.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we want to support. It came from wanting to support specifiers of quality lighting. The brands, the manufacturers that we want to bring into Spektd, they have to be relevant. There's no point in us as a company going out, getting subscription fees in from lighting manufacturers, which have absolutely no relevance and they're never going to get the specifications. Now, yes, there are, so designers and specifiers tell us which manufacturers they would like to come in. We also know a little bit about lighting ourselves, so we can say if a company comes along which isn't being isn't mentioned in anybody's wish list, but we think that they have something to offer, of course we would have absolutely like to bring them in and help them develop within the marketplace. On the other side as well, we have to be clear, we get asked this question a lot about, what happens if people put false data within Spektd? And whereas I don't want to sound like the owners of Facebook in terms of just holding my hands up and whatever, we cannot police anything. Now, there are things that we can do. So first of all, if people think that there is only garbage in our system, it's going to affect our product. So we will take action if we believe that people are. We don't have the resources to police it. And by the way, if it's garbage in our system, it will be garbage on their own websites and brochures and catalogs, etc., etc. But we do know something about lighting. And from the design side and the manufacturer side is we can take a view if we believe that somebody is quite clearly not putting in accurate data.
Fantastic. Richard, I think that's been a fantastic introduction for everybody to see where you are and to see what's going. I just wish you well. I was, we talked. I said maybe I'll ask you, and what happens next? I don't think you've got time to think about what happens next. I think what you're thinking about is what's happening now, which is fantastic enough. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, you are right, John. It's been a long time in the process, but we're really now in that ramp up phase of momentum on both sides. It started happening a few weeks ago. I think with what's been happening over the last few weeks as well, people are looking at saying maybe we do need to find different ways of working that gets rid of a lot of the waste. Now, let's hope something good can come out of this whole situation. But yeah, we are literally hanging on to the reins of the galloping horse at the moment. And please invite me back in a few months' time and we can tell you what is going to be next. All the time I can say that we are investing in additional functionality so that the product is continually improving. And we'll be launching additional functionality in the coming months as well. So watch this space.
Getting more and more exciting. Okay. Thanks to all for listening in to this video podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to get hold of Richard or myself, the details are on the screen there. Please don't try and get in touch with me to tell you about Spektd. Richard's the guy who knows all about that. I know about other stuff, I think. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. See you all next time. Richard, thank you very much for your time. And we will certainly be inviting you back in a few months to see how things are getting on. And for the time being, thank you and goodbye.